Imagine waking up to a news alert that doesn't just scroll past your screen, but fundamentally alters your understanding of global finance and your own financial future. Picture this: you open your banking app not to check your usual dollar balance, but to see a new live option for the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong. For years, this scenario has been the stuff of forum dreams and late-night speculation, a distant fantasy for those watching the world of exotic currencies. What if I told you that the ground is shifting in a way we haven't seen before, and the whispers coming out of 2025 are not just echoes of the past, but signals of a tangible building momentum? This isn't just another currency update, this is a deep dive into the tectonic plates of the global financial system. And the tremors are starting to be felt in the most unexpected of places, the marble-lined halls of major US banking institutions. The very idea that established American banks would even consider, let alone actively prepare for, the exchange of currencies like the dinar and the dong was, until very recently, dismissed as pure fiction by mainstream financial analysts. They called it a hopeless gamble, a fool's errand pursued only by those on the fringes of the investment world. But the language is changing. The narrative is being rewritten not by anonymous online gurus, but by the cold hard calculus of international geopolitics and economic necessity. The story of the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong is inextricably linked to the story of their nations. For Iraq, the journey has been one of devastating conflict, political instability, and a desperate struggle to rebuild from the ashes. The dinar's value was crushed by war and sanctions, creating a currency with a fantastically high nominal value, millions of dinar to $1 US, that belied its weak purchasing power internationally. This very structure, however, is what has fueled the long-held belief in a Revaluation, or RV, a sudden, dramatic increase in its exchange rate that would overnight create a new class of millionaires. The argument was always that Iraq, sitting on a sea of some of the world's most accessible and valuable oil reserves, was fundamentally a wealthy nation with a currency that did not reflect its true potential. The obstacle was never the resources, it was the framework. Similarly, Vietnam's Dong has been on a controlled journey of modernization. From a centrally planned economy to a dynamic manufacturing powerhouse, Vietnam has become one of Asia's most compelling growth stories. Its young, driven population and strategic positioning in the global supply chain have attracted massive foreign investment. Yet its currency remains tightly managed, not freely traded on the open market like the euro or the Japanese yen. The potential for the dong lies in the inevitable moment when Vietnam decides to loosen those controls and allow its currency to reflect its explosive economic growth. For 2 decades, holders of these currencies have been waiting for that single defining moment. They've been told to be patient, that the global financial reset is coming, that the old system of petrodollars is dying and a new multipolar currency world is being born. They've held their physical currency notes like tickets to a future that always seemed just one more year away. But what if the wait is finally entering its final chapter? What if the signals we are seeing in 2025 are not just more speculation, but the first concrete signs of that long prophesied shift? The answer to that question lies not in the forums, in the actions of the most risk-averse institutions on the planet, the banks themselves. And that is precisely where our story takes a dramatic turn. Stay with me, because what we're about to unpack is not a rumor, it's a pattern of institutional behavior that points towards a preparation phase that is, for the first time, becoming visible to those who know where to look. So let's talk about these banks. When we say major US banks, we're talking about the Citibanks, the JP Morgan Chases, the Bank of Americas, the titans of global finance. These institutions do not make moves based on sentiment or online hype. Their decisions are driven by billions of data points, sophisticated risk models, and most importantly, advanced intelligence on geopolitical treaties and central bank policies. For these banks to even begin the internal process of updating their systems to accommodate a new currency pair is a monumental undertaking. It requires legal reviews, compliance clearances, software updates in their core banking platforms, and training for thousands of tellers and financial advisors. It is a costly and complex process that is never done on a whim. Therefore, when we start to see the faint outlines of this preparation, it is a signal that cannot be ignored. What does this preparation look like in the real world, away from the sensational headlines? It begins with the quiet hiring of specialists. We are seeing a noticeable uptick in job postings from major financial institutions for roles specifically focusing on Middle Eastern and Southeast Asian currency operations and exotic currency settlement. These are not generic positions. They are highly specific roles requiring knowledge of the clearing systems in Baghdad and Hanoi. Furthermore, internal memos from within the Treasury Services departments of some of these banks which have been selectively shared with corporate clients, have begun to include language about contingency planning for high volatility currency events, and expanding our global currency basket offerings. This is not about selling you dinar. This is about these banks preparing their infrastructure to handle the dinar and the dong when the gates open. They are anticipating a surge of demand, not just from retail investors like you and me, but from large corporations with existing business in these regions who will need to convert massive sums of money. Think of the oil companies in Iraq or the manufacturing giants in Vietnam. When the revaluation happens, the entire flow of capital will change overnight, and these banks intend to be the central hub for that new financial traffic. This leads us to the most critical piece of the puzzle, the whispers of the rates. I need to be very clear here, there is no official fixed rate for a revaluation. That hasn't happened yet. Any number you see is an estimate, a projection, or a rumor. However, the whispers circulating in financial insider circles are becoming more synchronized. The chatter is no longer about whether a revaluation will happen, but when and at what level. For the Iraqi dinar, the discussions point towards an initial move that would bring it much closer to its pre-Gulf War strength, a rate that would represent a staggering increase from its current value. The rationale is that Iraq needs a strong currency to rebuild its nation without being saddled with crippling debt. For the Vietnamese Dong, the path is different. It's projected to be a series of managed, significant appreciations over a shorter period, aligning its value with the nation's staggering GDP growth and massive foreign exchange reserves. The intelligence suggests that both nations are coordinating these moves not in isolation, but as part of a broader international agreement, a key component of the so-called global financial reset. This reset aims to rebalance economic power and move away from the US dollar's sole dominance, creating a new system backed by a basket of currencies and commodities. The involvement of US banks is the ultimate validation of this process. They are not leading the charge. They are reacting to the inevitable, getting their pieces in place before the board is set for a new game. They see the tectonic pressure building, and they are building their structures to withstand and profit from the coming earthquake. Now, let's bring this all home to you, the individual watching this screen. What does this mean for your financial strategy, and what should you be doing right now? First and foremost, this is not financial advice, and you must always consult with a qualified professional. Based on this intelligence, we can talk about strategic positioning. The most important takeaway from this 2025 update is that the window for what we might call quiet accumulation is rapidly closing. Once these banks officially announce their exchange programs, the public frenzy will be unlike anything we've seen in the currency markets. The demand will be astronomical, and the opportunity to acquire these currencies at their current pre-RV levels will vanish in a matter of days, if not hours. Therefore, the time for education and decisive action is now. This means ensuring that your currency holdings are secure, authentic, and from reputable sources. The last thing you want is to be caught with counterfeit notes when the time comes. It also means understanding the process. Exchanging a currency during a revaluation event is not like a normal Forex trade. There will be protocols, limits, and potentially different rates for different volumes. The banks that have prepared will have a structured process, and being mentally and logistically prepared for that will give you a significant advantage. Think of it like being a prepper for a financial event. You have your supplies, and you have your plan. Your plan should include knowing which bank you will use, having all your required identification and documentation in order, and understanding the tax implications of a sudden windfall in your country. This is not just about making a profit. It's about preserving that profit and deploying it wisely to build generational wealth. The implications of this shift extend far beyond your personal bank account. A revaluation of the dinar and a significant appreciation of the dong would represent one of the largest transfers of wealth in human history. It would empower entire populations in Iraq and Vietnam, creating new consumer markets and investment destinations overnight. It would redraw the global economic map, reducing the leverage of Western financial institutions and creating a more balanced, multipolar world. For the United States, it presents both a challenge and an opportunity. The challenge is the relative decline of the dollar's supremacy. The opportunity is for U.S. businesses to engage with newly affluent markets and for U.S. banks to facilitate this new global flow of capital. This is why their positioning is so crucial. They are choosing to be the architects of the new system rather than the relics of the old. This entire scenario, which has been building for decades, is now reaching its climax. The signals from the banking world are the most concrete evidence we have ever received that the finish line is in sight. The patience, the faith, the years of holding on through doubt and ridicule, all of it was a preparation for this very moment. The story is no longer about if, it's about when. And based on everything we are seeing, that when is now measured not in years, but in months, perhaps even weeks. The pieces are all on the board. The global players have made their moves. The only question that remains is, are you ready? This is your call to action. Do not let this moment be something you look back on with regret, wondering, what if? The information is now in your hands. Your next step is the most important one you will ever take. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter for the global economy, and more importantly, for you. The future is not something that happens to you. It's something you build. And the tools to build an extraordinary future are right now closer than you think. If this report resonated with you, if it clarified the path forward, then your journey is just beginning. I want you to take that energy and that clarity and channel it. Share this video with one person you care about, one person who also deserves to understand what is coming. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on this 2025 update. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because the next update I bring you could be the one we have all been waiting for. The announcement that changes everything. Don't be on the outside looking in. Be part of this community, be informed, and be ready. I'll see you in the next video.